I used the same height that, yeah, it just looked like it was more because it had all kinds of stuff on top of it. So, yeah, it's the same. Live. Okay, so we're live. Anybody watching? I can't even pay to watch. Okay, so we'll get started. Hands up like this, I'll face this way. Ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and stop. Side 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and stop. Okay? Hands up. Reach down. 1, 2, 3. To your right. To your left. Center. Inhale. Exhale. Hands up. Reach down. 1, 2, 3. To your right. To your left. Center. Inhale. Exhale. Hands up. Reach down. 1, 2, 3. To your right. 2, 3. To your left. 2, 3. Center. Inhale. Exhale. Hands up one more time. Reach down. To your right. Left. Center. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, hands in your waist. Circular movements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2. Center reverse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2. Center. Cross. Knees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2. Reverse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2. Hands in your waist, neck turning. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2. Back and forth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2. Center, tilt to the side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2. Center, down, rotating. 1, 2, 3. Reverse. 1, 2, 3. Center, hands up. Pull in, inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, spread your feet. Turn shoulders. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, and stop. Okay, I'm going to stretch it out. Switch. Switch. Switch, straighten the front knee. Switch. 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 Okay, Sana. Okay, shake it out. Okay, deep breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Okay. Hands on your waist. Shoulder roll. Reverse. Okay, and here. Press, release, exhale, inhale. And stop. Deep breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, wrists. Reverse. Okay, palms down. Bigger circle. And stop. Okay, shake it out. Okay, side to side. Shift a little. Okay, center. Okay, center. So few insert needles. Okay, switch. Okay, shake it up. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, forward and back. Silk grilling. Switch. Yeah, capture this mirror here. Okay, center, open and close. Switch. Okay, center, circular movements. Okay, lower hoop. Shoulder height. Okay, elbows down. Okay, lower. Palms down. Lift up the back, straighten it out. Extend. Okay, deep breathing. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Okay, diagonal flying. Okay, switch. Okay, center, cloud hands. Okay, palms down. Lift up, carry tiger to the mountain. Okay, infinity sign. Form the fist. Okay, strum the lute. Okay, turn, draw the bow. Okay, fan to the back. Okay, raise the hand. Okay, shake it out. Deep breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, we'll go through short form. Get this in here. Okay, ready? Feet parallel, feet shoulder width. Start off preparation. Okay, deep breathing. Okay, go to the long form first. Ready, feet parallel. Okay, deep breathing. Inhale. Okay, good. So relax 2 seconds. So, anything you want to work on, Arthur? The whole thing? Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. So do you find, Tai Chi meditative? Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So, they, when we do slow motion or do the breathing and so forth, it does actually help control your, um, the the mind and the stress inside the brain even, because when we talk about the body being involved with relieving stress. So I brought up this article that Eric had sent me, and it was a neurologist, and I don't know if did you hear about what I was talking about the other day? So it was about a neurologist. He was, I guess his son had told him to do Pilates. So Pilates, yoga, all these disciplines that, that's pretty popular now. But so his dad said that how's that going to help relieve stress? He said, the way he does it is just put it aside and just move on. That's how he would deal with stress. But that's just that's kind of coping. So what he wanted to do, he says, I have to have something in science that proves to me that it's going to really, reduce stress or how that's tied together. So he continued to do his research. He's a neuro researcher, not a neurologist. But he was thinking, how could this benefit me? So I talk about this all the time. I'm not a neuro researcher, but and I'm not a neurologist, but I do think of the mind-body relationship and how I feel that movement is so essential to life. And so when you hear me say that all the time about circulation, about how it controls the different systems in your body, but, not to a scientific level in the sense that I know every, thing that's, wired through the body. So then someone else was doing some research, and they talked about, how they discovered in the brain, because the brain's wired in a certain way. Wiring is those, what I call wiring, but they call them axons and dendrites or whatever in the brain, and neurons, and they have all these terms. But the thing is, they found a mapping in the brain that's, tied to your adrenaline, your adrenaline gland, something that they didn't know before. And then they were talking about how it's kind of all mapped out as it knows, from I guess they talked about the core. They brought up the core, how the core, which they call this the core now, ever since they started doing a lot of the abdominal stuff. And they do a lot of these in their training. So they said that the wiring in the axial muscles have a direct sort of mapping or wiring to the adrenaline gland. And there's that correlation how body movement in the torso, or they call it I call it the torso, they call it the core, correlates to what happens with the adrenaline gland. I guess it's sitting above the kidney. So because it's somewhat connected, when you move your core through movement, it does affect what the adrenaline's going to do. So this secretes, the hormones. So that's really what they used to call the fight or flight situation when adrenaline comes in. So he was saying that, we don't need that type of stress. We don't have that kind of stress anymore. It was kind of stress that back in the primitive days, if you were going to get attacked by some animal, you would go through this surge of adrenaline, and you either fight the animal or you'd run for a mile super speed. So they said we don't have that kind of stress anymore. So they didn't really make that correlation of how that affects. But we're still stressed. It may not be an animal, but we have all kinds of stress. Look at all the people stressed by the COVID and stressed by, if you live in a safe community, it's all right. But if you live in an area like inner city or places where there's a lot of violence, you would be stressed every time you go home. So, we still have those kind of situations. So how do people cope with it? So that's the thing, is that movement is essential. That's how I think of it. Not essential just for that type of a defense or the calming of the mind or clearing the stress out of your system. I look at it as circulation mainly. But we need good circulation regardless, and circulation is really tied to movement, just like this mapping is tied to movement. In fact, your brain has all these mappings of the different parts of your body that it controls. It regulates it by seeing what's happening in those areas in a sense that it has to, send out whatever it needs, whether it's chemicals or hormones or, if your muscles are doing something that requires a lot of energy, then the energy goes there. If your digestive system needs a lot of energy to digest, it goes there. If your brain needs energy, which it uses a lot of, then it goes there. So it's kind of like a system that kind of works on its own to figure all of that out. So it's just interesting that, I talk about Tai Chi and stress relief and how relaxation, letting go of the body. And then I talk a lot about torso movement, because you have your arms and then you have your legs and then you have your torso. The torso is pretty hard to control because normally we don't use it in a specific way. In martial arts and Tai Chi, more advanced integration of body, it comes into play because you can't tie your lower body with the upper body unless it's actually tied through your torso and through your what we call the waist. So the waist is this area of the body you have to turn. So that's really the core. So if this is something that has to move to help alleviate the stress that you could accumulate in the body, you could see why someone that just sits all day long and very stiff and not moving, that they would, only allow, the stress level to increase. Whereas you go through a series of exercises and movements that we do a lot of twisting, a lot of turning, a lot of bending. This all involves your core, which is what I call it torso movement. And torso movement really is tied to not just moving it randomly, we move it methodically. We have to move these areas so that there's a linkage and a connection between what happens here and what happens here, what happens here and what happens. So that becomes a very complex kind of motor skill that normal people, or not normal people, but average people that don't do this would not have even a clue that that's what is happening. But now that they have a bit of research and some science supporting the fact that this area of the body is directly correlating to some gland that would, help control stress, whether it spikes it or takes it down, is kind of interesting. So the stuff that we're doing from bending and twisting and moving, it should be in everything that we do in the form, because that's what we're training to do. And as you train more and more, like you said, if you don't get it this time, you'll get it next time. So we always have to move. In Tai Chi, we call it right and left, right? So when we move right and left, we have to balance the hand movement and the body movement in a way that it synchronizes. And I sometimes call it movements compatible with your body. So if we're moving your body right and you're moving to the left, then you have to get that to synchronize. So if I'm turning this way and still turning my torso or turning my hip, then I can take away some of the physical action that would be, say, go from here to here without just moving the arm, because I can make up some of the movement by turning. In fact, if I just turn the body itself, and then turn the body itself. All I have to do is create the shape. So it doesn't take a lot of strength to create shapes. So in Tai Chi we say use your will and not strength. That's what we try to do. How do you not use strength? It's not no strength, it's the correct strength. What does it take to put your arm in this position? Practically nothing, because you're not doing anything except for creating that shape. So I call that manipulation of skeletal structure, create roundness from the straight or create the straightness from the round. Those are kind of terms that they use, but how do you do that? How do you create straightness within the round? So, when we go like this and you create an angular position, then you turn. So you're creating lines in space. And those lines in space are the patterns that we talk about, and those patterns in space is what you have to control. Then that's the mapping of our form and the mapping of our movement. So even though, the researchers would say mapping of your body, that's all kind of pre-wired in your system to know. But it still doesn't know unless you kind of feed it something to let it decide what's going to happen. So even though, the brain is there to take in stuff, the mind is there to take in information, it still has to have a response. It's kind of a give and take. So if you learn that doing certain things cause a lot of stress, then if you're smart enough, then you would know not to do that, right? If you know that a tiger is going to eat you, and if you didn't know that, you'd be in trouble. But if you know that a tiger can eat you, then most likely you're going to stay away, or like you develop a certain intelligence that, or knowing that don't go there, don't go in a cage unless you know what you're doing, so it's kind of like that. So, yeah. So when we do movements, we kind of try to figure out, well, if it hurts, don't go there. If we do this, don't go there. So then if this is too physical, so that's kind of the discovery that you make when we go back and forth. So when we grasp the sparrow's tail on this side, we have to look at the corner to the shoulder, forward and back. And this here. So if you look at the line, you can see that it traverses across from shoulder to hip, down here, and then it comes across horizontally like that. So it doesn't really, it makes a circle mainly because the body is creating a roundness. And it appears to be circular because of the manipulation of the body. So now you have a circular pattern. We have a circular pattern, but yet all we're doing is this. Because we tie it to here, and now it appears to be circular. So we're creating these images and patterns from the body cooperating with each other. So that's the balance in motion. And it's something that, is programmed, has muscle memory. So muscle memory, as I was saying in some of the classes, is not muscle memory for just muscle having memory. It's really joint position memory. It creates these positions that we're trying to recreate, whether it's a triangle, whether it's a oblique position in this, or it's a horizontal circle or horizontal hoop on one side, and then when you go like this to roll back, and you go like this to push, you're creating a circular motion as part of what they would call the, sort of the centrifugal forces that come off of your waist. Even though centrifugal force theoretically doesn't exist, but we just use that as a guideline that it's the tangent of the circle. So that's the straight coming from the round. See, so there's a lot of ideas that if you understand it, then your movements will improve. Because the whole idea after you memorize the form is improve your movement. So we did a drill like this before. We go to the center and we turn. Then we do grasp the sparrow's tail, left side. We hook the wrist and turn. Square the feet, and we turn again, switch the other side, and here we are, we've grasped the sparrow's tail on the right side. So this is doing the right and left Tai Chi single whip without actually stepping outside of the shoulder width stance. So that's a way of sort of practicing and getting a dose of grasp the sparrow's tail. And then getting the development of the transitions in the legs to give you the turn to the front, right? We're turning to the front. Now see, the turn is the pivot. Typically in a form we pivot 45 degrees. Here we pivot 90 and we find the square position. Without going to here, if we were there, it would be single whip position over to here. And then you would do that again. So that's a drill. Now we did this in a vertical position. We went forward and we sit back and then turn. We would do a brush knee to the opposite side of vertical elbow, and you go forward, and then we sit back and we turn. Now we have the 180-degree turn that we do in the oblique, brush, knee, and push, you see. So now we're practicing a transition, footwork, build timing and integration of how the body moves in a direction and maintaining grasp the sparrow's tail or brush knee, or even from here, forward, back to Jade Lady Work Shuttle. Then when we turn and go forward, back, and turn, you would have essentially the transition to Jade Lady Work Shuttle. Now when you learn the form, and we're here, and we walk over to here, and then we do the hand movement, then we go like this, and go like this, and go like this, and go like this. That's when you learn the form, and it's broken down into vertical elbow, horizontal elbow. We learn from this position, and we cross over, step up, and we're in this stance. Then we pivot, step, and step to get to the other corner. But how do you build the timing to go from one position to the next? Unless you're actually aware that when I'm here and I go like this, say Jade Lady Work Shuttle, that I have to turn. Now if I turn using the motion that I use in like the exchange between vertical and horizontal, which is this, right? Which is this, without the feet. But when we tie the feet into it, is our feet working with our hands? So in a sense, now you have the pass-through to get from one side to the other, how to shift your weight, how to pivot your foot. So that actually heightens your awareness, but it also builds a transition that is the kind of transition we would want, because we have to have that relationship. So between this, and between this and this, your movements become second nature. And as creatures of habit, if we do things over and over a certain way, we start to pick up on it. We start to learn that this is that, this is that. But when we're going through those transitions, we don't really think about the triangles, hoops, or squares. We don't pay attention to it because we're so focused on the footwork, or so focused on that this hand is going down here while this hand is coming here. Once your hands actually have sort of a pattern of motion, then you can start to say, hey, is this hand on my sunrise? Is it at the nose level? Is this hand in the horizontal position? Is this hand in the lower hoop while I make my secondary change of hand? So, passing from here to here to here to here to here, or passing from here to here to here to here to here, are all sort of places you go through, right? If I'm here and I'm here, we don't look at it as lower hoop and a palm strike face. But if you're talking about the geometry and position and the shapes that we use, and we're consistent with that, then we're always going to be at one of those positions at some point within the movement. So, but can your brain track all of that? It tracks it when you think about it. It tracks it when you're conscious of it. But if you're not conscious of it and you're thinking of something else, like learning another way of doing it or something that you miss, then that could take a back seat to what you're trying to get to do until that's already there as a subconscious behavior. Then when you move, it just is going to be there. You know, just like when we do like the walking and the pushing hands or any of the drills that we do, where it requires a bunch of movements that are a transition going from one hand to the next. Does the hands know that this is what strum the lute is? Does it know that this is ward off? Does it know that this is press? Does this know that this is approaching there and this is approaching there? Does it know that when you turn and you step and you move, that your hands can actually make these patterns and still be coordinated with the movement? Is this stepping up and stepping back part of the movement? Are we strumming the lute, or are we diagonal flying, or part the horse's mane in motion? See, so when we turn like we're doing in the Jade Lately work shuttle, or we do this like we're doing in the two-handed push. When we step, are we moving consistently through these positions? So that's what we're trying to figure out as integration of body. Because when you have to use the movement to avoid your opponent, you sidestep. How do you know how to sidestep and move around your opponent and stay not double weighted, right? So it has to do footwork. So footwork has to be part of it. Turning in a direction, turning in a direction, turning and spinning and turning. It's always tied to your center. So I give you a sample of what happens as you evolve into sort of this free form. And free form becomes knowing what that space is, from all the mapping you've learned from footwork and all the different sort of directions of your postures. You know, there's downward, there's outward, so all of these come into play. But it really has to be ingrained in your body and mind that it's always there. And then it just disappears from both of it. It's just there. That's what reflexes are. It's just absorbed into your being, and that's when you morph into I call it metamorphosis. It's like your first you're like what do you call those, the little caterpillars? Then they morph into a butterfly. They go through a metamorphosis. They change form. So your body, when you learn movement, because most of us are pretty uncoordinated. Well, sequentially, like, you're not born knowing a Tai Chi form. You're not born knowing how to move. So you have to learn it somehow. And when you learn it, it's not just copying. It becomes absorbed into your system. So that's where there's a transformation from what you were and what you are now and what you are in the future. So kind of interesting. So. Yeah. 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 So like yeah. 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 So like you're talking about the alphabet being, the fundamental base before you make a word. And then when you make a word, you make a sentence. That sentence becomes a meaning from knowledge that you've absorbed over time or discovery of what you're trying to, yeah. So the leverage you're talking about could be leveraging just like, there's different methods. In finance, you leverage too. You buy a piece of property and it goes up in value, then you leverage off of the value of that to do. So we're constantly using those same terms in different applications or ways of, yeah. 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 So yeah, of the, yeah. Yeah. So that's because, learning martial arts, like learning anything, we learn the fundamentals, but unless the information is fed to you constantly, you really don't know where it's going. So the stages of learning for, like in Wei Chi, when you first learned it and you felt there was something missing, the missing is the level of interpretation after the teachers that brought it back from Okinawa came, because there's something lost in translation, and part of lost in translation is time also. The time factor for how martial arts came to this country in the early days, including Tai Chi, came as a form of art that everyone was interested in, but wasn't able to get enough knowledge from just the form, and it struggled for a long time. So, each one of these arts that came to America, whether it came through servicemen or service person that studied in Asia, brought back whether it was karate or judo and all this. They just brought back the physical form, but you don't know what the value is until you actually spend a lot of time on it. They did go back and try to find out more about it, but it's still, you have to kind of live it in order to understand what they're talking about in some ways. Yeah. Well, actually, it's a cultural thing in a sense too. Like karate, even though, and karate evolved from a lot of the Chinese styles too. So they have even in their own culture what they took out of what they learned. But the Japanese actually are pretty like organized in how they try to do something to a specific way of thinking too. So every culture has their ideas and methods. That's why you can't, you can't second guess them, right? Yeah. It's like a carpenter and and a furniture maker. They're all working with wood, but they have a completely different idea of how and what they're going to turn it into. And some people, like today, back in the day, they only use hand tools. So there's people that are fanatical or they're obsessed with saying no machinery, you have to do it all by hand. Yeah. If they realize that it has it beyond the physical, yeah. So, but that's a level of understanding and stage that people have to actually rise to. If you just think that you're going to go to school, study that, and then go from there to that other level where it's kind of mysterious, it's not going to happen right away. I just got a call from someone looking for a Qigong class that my teacher did in the early 80s. And I told him that my teacher passed away and he had stopped doing that type of qigong back in the late 80s, just before we moved to Cambridge. So that's actually gone now. That doesn't, no one practices that anymore. So it's a time thing too, But that person was looking for. I said, go watch the videos. I have videos of Tai Chi and Kung Fu there.